What a treat we have today. I'm so fortunate to be introducing Steph Carse to our readers. Steph, tell us about who you are. You've had such an interesting and inspirational journey, uh, and you have hit the highs in both secular and Christian music. And yet, I think a lot of our readers are going to be learning about you for the first time, and I just love to be that opportunity to introduce you to a lot more fans.
Well, I would say I grew up in a church, and my parents were a Baptist, probably the only Baptist French church in Quebec. But I grew up in a church, but I always say that it's interesting, even though I remember accepting the Lord. I was maybe 6 or 7 years old.
Hmm.
I found a relationship with the Lord when I was outside the church. So for me, it was during the hungry years. I got fortunate to start. Yeah, I see. I had a conflict in my head growing up in the church. I wanted to do music, and I wanted to be involved in films, and and in my parents' idea, I think, and looking back now, I realized it was a very, what do you call it, religious spirit, right? So everything was not proper. Um, but so I had a hard time at first understanding because there's some desires that I had in order. I felt like I was meant to sing at an early age, and so there was a lot of conflict with the church for me. That's why I say I met God outside of the church. Um, Once I understood that God makes you hungry for bread, not to feed you with a stone, meaning that if I had a desire, it was obviously to glorify the Lord, but
Hmm.
it was not a sinful thing to want to sing, that I wanted to sing or that I wanted to be involved in the movie industry. So it was a strange beginning because of the religious spirit that I grew up with. And so through the grace of God, even though on every secular album that I put out there, I started in country music, and I would always honor, God and my Lord Jesus Christ, but yet I was doing secular music, and we got really successful across Canada. First, I got nominated for Juno in 1994. I didn't win, but it's still a great, it's still a great
You sold a
introduction.
lot, though, right? As I recall, you sold a lot of country music.
Yeah, I did, but I wasn't very much into business at the time. I was what you could call extremely green, and so I wasn't the one making all the the money behind this. So I ended up in '97 moving to Nashville and having to live in my car, and those were I call the hungry years, and I remember I was feeding myself at the dollar menu at Wendy's and cleaning up at the YMCA. And yet at that time, because of the sales that I'd done in Canada on records, I was working with some very important folks. For instance, Donna Summer, if you remember Donna Summer,
Sure.
her husband was my producer, and I got involved with them to do an album for the Special Olympics. And then I was working, like with Kevin Bacon and a lot of different artists. And yet I would go back to my car after
Wow.
not tell anybody.
What a
But
head
but
trip.
what? Yeah, but that's where I met the Lord, and I think I needed to be stripped away from a lot of things to understand the difference between a religion and a relationship. And once that clicked, then things started to change. And so that, if you're asking me what my background is, that's really summing it up, as quickly as I can.
And how long were you in the country music mode? How many years did you do that?
Well, what's interesting is I didn't really start in country because my background was very different. Meaning, Dad was a fan of Elvis, so I loved Elvis. I loved rock and roll
Oh,
at the time. Mom loved gospel and country music, and then Grandma was an opera singer. So, and I had great great uncles that were opera singers, had records. They were doing
Wow.
voices in the films, you know, the musical in Hollywood. So that was my background. I was classically trained, and so starting in country music was rather just a. It was not my idea. It was the producer's idea, and so you know, with this kind of background, I think throughout the years I went from country to pop opera to pop to gospel. So it just made sense because of my bringing up, you know.
And so you have a deep pedigree. Did that add pressure to you that, or you said knew you wanted to be a singer from an early age?
Hmm.
Did that come from you or your folks or both?
No, it's something that you know. I always say that to people, if they, you know, should if somebody comes to me and says, "Should I be an actor or should I be a singer?" I always say, if you have to think about it, then no, it's not something you think about. It's something that you are,
You know.
you know,
Yeah.
you know. So music was
Fascinating.
something that drew me. Yeah.
So you've been in the film business and you literally won an Emmy in the film business. Talk to us about that. What have you done and how do you work there?
Well, there's a lot of step before I got there. Um, Interesting enough, if you want me to tell you a little bit more, before that is
Yeah, sure.
when I was in the world of pop opera, and now we're going back from the 90s to 2000, 2010, 12, 13. We did a PBS special where yeah, actually the switch happened in 98 when my manager in Florida was going to book Andrea Bocelli for the opening of Portofino at Universal Studio. And for some reason, he couldn't get Bocelli. And he asked me to step in and do this. And at the time, I was so hungry that I said yes without knowing who Bocelli was.
Oh my gosh.
But that was a
That's
turning point.
ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. So you can tell you how hungry I was, or I wanted to get out and eat something else in the Wendy's menu. But um, but it was a turning point that led me to do shows in Las Vegas and then to film a PBS special. Um, and so after that, after a while, being in Vegas was very difficult for me long term, thinking that it was such a dry climate. And the voice, it was difficult for the voice because it was, you know, very demanding. They all want me to have those big notes and those, you know, and
I can't
you just
imagine.
yeah, so and they were expecting that, and the pressure, the self, you know, the self pressure that you put upon us. Yeah, it's better coming out. It better comes out, right? Come out,
Hmm.
and so there was a time, and I remember 2013 was a very decisive year for me because I lost a whole octave, and I couldn't do the same songs, and I thought, God, you know, I can deal with bad musicians, I can deal with bad sound, bad lighting, but if my voice is not there, I felt like I was a lost child.
Hmm.
And it was I realized that it had become my identity. And so the shift happened at that time, and I did something that I don't say that we should do that to God, but I asked God, I said, Lord, if you restore my voice, I will sing for your glory. I will just actually, if I show you my phone, my screensaver still has that prayer. Um,
No kidding.
yeah, it's 2013, August 25th. It says, I pray that that I record a bold project for the Lord that will be heard around the world and bring glory to God and to my Lord Jesus Christ. And I wrote that in 2013.
Hmm.
And it still is. And after that, so that was a shift. You're asking me how I got to the film. Well, it led me to produce a TV special. And what I thought would have been 3 to 6 months to produce took 3.5 years because first I was financing it. So that was a little
Wow.
longer. And then
Yeah.
second, it was called My Shining Hour Story. And I wanted to be truthful about my walk with God, you know, because as a young kid, you know, you see in the church, I've witnessed, you know, people acting a certain way on Sunday and being completely different for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
and I didn't want to be, didn't want to be there, repeat that history, right? What I've seen. And so I wanted to be truthful, and I realized that I had a lot of things to clean up from my life. I felt very much as a Christian like a phony. First of all, I had a drinking problem. And, I had a lot of things that needed to be cleansed, and I didn't want to sweep them under the carpet. So that I think that's why God also allowed me to take that much time, because it's a long process. It took me 3.5 years, and when we completed the special, no one wanted it.
No
Not a
kidding.
single- No one. So I said, God, I did all this. It's the famous line. I said, I did all this for you. I realized it's not for you; it's for me, right?
Uh,
And so, and one of the things that seems to repeat in my life is that the moment I'm about to give up, then that's when something good happens. And I think it's just to show me that the control we never have, and then we have to
mhm.
live in submission. And it's not when we want it, you know. And so, having said that, I said, you know what, I did my part, so I fulfilled my promise. So the rest is up to you. And I was ready to move on, and then all of a sudden, Daystar Canada was interested in the TV special, and they started airing it on Daystar Canada. And they were selling the devotional, the CD, and the DVD. And that it was successful that they brought it in the United States and ended up being shown worldwide on primetime Saturday in 2.2 billion homes.
Wow.
Uh, so I look at my prayer now. That's why I keep it here. God was certainly faithful, because I said that will be heard around the world, and so He heard it. And in this case, the only thing that it brought to me outside of this recognition is actually humbleness, and realizing that, my goodness, Father is real. The God that we pray is real, and we have a holy calling, and it has nothing to do with us. It has to do about bring glory to the Son and praising the Father. And I guess
So true.
I would say, yeah, I would say I was a slow learner in that process. So
Aren't we all? And you'd like to take a shortcut, but
yeah, it doesn't.
often
And then
doesn't
finally,
doesn't work that way.
and finally, the Emmy, the first Emmy was in 2019. It was for the arrangement of Amazing Grace that I did at the time. Now we have a new Amazing Grace version, because I keep singing Amazing Grace. I've recorded that song 3 times because I'm just so in awe with His grace. And but at the time, the arrangement we had is what won the first Emmy, and then that led to the TV special, and that's how it started. Yeah, it's God's
What a
little
walk
trick.
you've had. Well, and that brings us to the latest thing you've got to talk about. So, just recently, you won another major competition, the Masked Singer. You got to talk to us about that. What was that like? And by the way, congratulations.
Thank you. Well, I didn't want to do it
You didn't.
because no, for 3 years they've been asking me to do it. That was the third year, actually. I didn't want to do it because I didn't think people would remember. It was so long ago. And then second, my music was so different than what they have heard of me. And so they were, I was labeled with a country artist, right? With the cowboy hat and all this. It was a big labeling for me, right? So it was hard to get out of that character. So I wasn't sure. It's something I had turned the page to, and I didn't want to revisit. And then what happened is that they were very convincing. The producer, Martin was his name, seemed to be aware of what I was doing in the United States and wanted the Canadian audience to know where I was. And they said they need to hear your voice. And so they agreed that I would choose the song with them,
Nice.
uh, because I told them, I said, I'm not going to do anything that's going to compromise my faith. And they had numbers of dance numbers I didn't want to partake, and they were so respectful of that.
Hmm.
And the character that they chose for me was a red cardinal, the bird, which for them represents the church, right?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, because the majority of them are from the Catholic audience. So So it was done so well, and it's so and the fact that I won with we did great songs. We did a variety. We confused the judges like crazy because I started with Celine Dion all by myself in Spanish with
Wow.
those I'll send you the private link of this with those Mariah Carey notes because when God restored my voice, He gave me not only the octave that I lost, but an octave extra. So now I have 5 octaves. So that's why I felt like I needed to honor my part because God has certainly, fulfilled His part. And so I started like they thought it was a soprano, and then all of a sudden I come as a baritone singing in Spanish with an Andrea Bocelli voice, so to speak, and then go to pop after this. So it was like they were like their face. I'm going to show it to you. So that their faces is worth more than just hearing me.
I bet.
And then we did a lot. We did a lot of different songs. Never Enough from the movie. I forgot the name of it now, but and then Time to Say Goodbye from Bocelli, and we did another Celine Dion song, and then ending with Amazing Grace, which actually won, which is amazing, right?
It is
Uh,
amazing.
yes.
And that was quite a costume. What was that like wearing that?
It's beautiful to watch, but not to wear.
I bet.
First of all, I have an eye that's better than the other, and so I could only see through the beck, through underneath the beck of the bird, and then by mistake, the one of the side was taped.
Oh
So,
no.
and it was on my good eye, and so I could barely walk. It's so funny when you watch the performance. The dancers are grabbing me to lead me because I couldn't see a thing. And then finally,
That's
you get accustomed to it. But it's certainly a hot costume, so I have a lot of empathy for Disney characters now.
oh I can only imagine. Well, what a great story and congratulations again. So what's around the corner in 2026? You're a renaissance man when it comes to music, um, and how the Lord has led your heart is so inspirational. But there's just no way to guess what you're going to be doing this year. What are you doing this year?
Well, I don't know where to look. Well, I could tell you what I'm doing right now, but I don't know what the Lord has in store right now. I could tell you that we re-recorded, I should say, "Amazing Grace" with one of the judges from the Masked Singer. She's kind of the Cece Wyman of Canadian, and then so it was funny how it happened. She was actually where she's seated with all the judges. Says, "Why don't you get out of your pedestal and come and sing Amazing Grace with me?" Because I knew she was a great singer. And she came down and sang Amazing Grace, and I said, "Well, if you come to Orlando, we'll record a new version. I'll get you Universal Studios tickets." So I guess that's how I lured
Nice.
her to do it. And then we recorded the song, and then we released it a couple of weeks ago. It's actually number one across Canada on iTunes in Christian music right now.
Yeah,
I
it
couldn't have
sounds
planned
awesome.
something like that. I could not have planned something like that.
Yeah.
And it actually it hit number 6 on the regular chart. Actually 5. So it's pretty amazing. I think that people are hungry for the Lord, and He's just opening the door so that we could share the gospel. And I'm just amazed that I was a slow learner. It took that long. I felt like one of the Jews that I've walked through in my 40 years around the same mountain. But it's beautiful to see what door He's opening right now. And I'm working on the film, which is a series actually. It's called A New Beginning. It takes us from the book of Genesis all the way to the book of Revelation, and through AI, I'm able to recreate a lot of scenes from the Revelation that we would have never been able to do unless you'd have like a $200 million budget. So technology has been very useful for that purpose. So I can't wait to
Can
do
you
it.
release date?
I'm on part 4,
Ah,
so this is the last part. So when with a new Earth, so I'm so glad finally got on to get on part four because part three was horrific. The spiritual
Mm,
warfare I had to go through doing it,
mm.
with the Antichrist and all that. So it's a very, very, very. I think it's going to be really well done to evangelize and talk about salvation through Christ. And
Yeah, I bet that's an emotional,
mhm.
a very emotional project, no doubt about it. So we're here in January.
Yeah,
Can you share one of your New Year's resolutions with us?
I don't know if I like to say that because they never really worked. So I just pray that that I get myself out of the way and let the Lord lead and to live in submission and faith. And that I could tell you it's a moment to moment decision. So that's my prayer.
What a great prayer. And you add grace to that, it's going to be a great year. That's exactly right.
You know what I realized recently is like remember the story when Jesus arrived on the donkey in Jerusalem with all the palm and everybody was like bowing and singing, chanting, and putting amazing clothing in front. So you think about what did the donkey think? You probably thought it was all for him, right? But the reality,
Mm.
that attention was for the king on. So, and I feel very much like a donkey today. I think what we carry is we're carrying a very important message, and it has nothing to do with us. It's just we're just privileged to partake in sharing it.
I love talking to you, Steph. That's you're touching my heart, and I know you're going to touch the heart of our readers. And I love following you. I didn't know you until earlier this year when I was introduced to you, and um, it's one of those things like how could I not have known about Steph? So I really look forward to watching your track through this year and keeping in touch. And the project you're doing now sounds really, really interesting. So I hope to see that as well.
Pray for
Anything you'd like
us.
to tell our audience before we wrap up?
No, just pray for us because we need to bring this project to term. Um, there's so much involved in here in this, and so this is a good way to share the gospel with a younger audience as well.
And what's the
And
title or the working title?
it's a new beginning.
A New Beginning. Very good. Steph, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. And I know that you're going to just bless a lot of people just in the short time we've been able to talk.
Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. God bless you.
Okay, that was so good. That was so
Good.
good. I sure hope we can hang out sometime. Um, because that was
You coming
really
down here anytime soon?
well. Every May, Momentum, the Christian radio broadcasters have an annual convention called Momentum, and it's always in Orlando. So
Oh,
I'll be
do
down
you have
there.
my cell phone?
I do not.
Let me give it to you now.
Okay, that'd be awesome.
407
Okay,
443
okay.
9418.
Okay, now a personal question,
Yep.
business, but I do these nights in BC and Alberta where we'll set it up with a friend or someone that's been introduced to me. We'll just do a night of worship with 5 to 10 couples in a person's home, and I'll bring in either a wide range of artists, anyone from a local worship leader to Jordan St. Cyr. You may know him, or I've had Bart from Mercy Me. Um, is that something you would ever consider for the right price to bring you in for just a intimate night of worship in someone's home?
Absolutely.
Your story is so compelling, and I know it'd be really a rich evening. So I
Absolutely.
might reach out to you for that at some time. And I assume that You like coming back to Canada once in a while?
Yeah, I'd love to actually. I've never been to Vancouver.
You've never been to Vancouver.
No.
Well, we got to change that.
Yeah, we got to change that. It's one. It's
Yeah.
on my bucket list, but never had the time
Yeah.
to.
Well,
Yeah,
watch out. You might fall in love with it.
what I hear.
Okay. So photos. Should
All
we
right,
just,
so I have the professional photo of the. Oh, we didn't talk about the book. You know, it's interesting. The
oh,
book.
shoot.
Well, it's okay, but the book is really. I'm so transparent on it. I talk about my
Hey, I'm
my.
going to restart that and I'll plug it in. Okay.
Okay,
Okay. So
and
let's
you know,
do, remind me of the title. I had it on a different page.
it's called The Impossible Dream.
That's right. Three,
And
two, oh,
we also have a children's book. We don't need to talk about this though, but it's for the Y account. But the Impossible Dream is a great book to evangelize, and because it really talks about how do I get to the point in understanding the difference between a religion and a relationship.
yeah, those are the words I always use. It's not about religion, it's about your relationship. And
Yeah.
frankly, I don't think we do a good job talking about that. I've always said if there was a chief marketing officer of Christianity, they should be replaced. But that's another conversation. Okay, we're going to hit the book.
Okay, great.
Three, two, one. Steph, one thing that maybe our audience doesn't know is you're also an author and you have a new book out called The Impossible Dream. Tell
Mhm.
us about that and tell us what was in your heart when you wrote that and how you want it to be used.
Well, it was like I said to you earlier, in when I started the My Shining Hour project. I wanted to be truthful. I wanted to come from a place where I didn't want to hide anything. I wanted to tell about the struggles that I had, and there's a lot of different issues, deliverance that I had to go through as well. That sometimes I believe that there's patterns that are repeated. It's not just something that just happened in your lifetime. I believe there's things that are hereditary. That are spiritual. If we get some traits from our grandparents physically, we get something also spiritually sometimes. And so I wanted to address that and be very transparent because we all have our sad story. We all have our moments. And I wanted to talk not as much about the sad moments and the sad stories, but how through understanding the difference between a religion and a relationship that my life began to change. Not overnight, but it began to change. And it was a process, like the same process of making the film. It was 3.5 years. Because you got to go through certain things. And the book, I called it The Impossible Dream because at first it's a song that I've always been drawn to. I think this is, for me, it's kind of a Christian song, The Impossible Dream, if you really pay attention to the lyrics. And I felt like with everything I've been through, to be here today at my age and to be getting this kind of recognition this late in my life, it was the impossible dream. So it was just God's, and it's God's miracle. And so the book, I go from my childhood to basically the way I was brought up and what led me to where in the battles and the victories. I think mostly people are interested now because there's so many stories out there, but they're interested in the redemption part
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we are all aiming to attain, to get. And so I circle around a lot of battles, places that would bring me to square one. It's why in this area am I always coming back to square one? Whether it was in my relationships or my business, because I've had a lot of great opportunities in my music career. But at the moment I was about to grab them, it slipped through my hands, through my fingers. And so many times. So I just wanted to talk openly about that and how it realigned me in my case, I think God was keeping me for Him, and use my voice for His glory. But yeah, I'm excited about this book, and
And it was just
I
released.
it was just released.
Yeah.
We get this miracle again. It got number one too on Amazon.ca, on the bestseller, and for the French audience, because we did it in French and English, so we have both versions. So it's interesting that all of the Masked Singer led me to use my story to talk about the Lord.
And you know what? Who knows what's around the corner?
We don't know. We
I
don't
mean,
know.
that's crazy.
We don't know.
Well, listen, this has been a wonderful time. Thank you so much again for everything. And personally, I'm going to check out that book because that sounds like something that would be perfect for me to give to a few people that's on my mind. So that's what I'm thinking.
Thank you.